Hey friends. I've been sitting with an idea today that kind of popped up for me yesterday, I guess. But it's something that I've felt, and it's a sense that I've had, I think, for many years in a variety of circumstances, and it's something that has felt kind of like a universal thing that in some ways I'd never named, but I'm just going to kind of give you the smattering of my impressions and how I kind of wound my way to this thought, and then I'm probably going to unpack it a little too and just see where it takes me. But basically, what showed up for me, I was listening to a Sadhguru video. You've heard me say this before. And something stood out to me about my experience of watching a guru, a teacher. If we don't like the word guru, we can just say a teacher. In a lot of cases in my own life, it's been teachers, not so much gurus, but watching a teacher speak and transmit. And the experience that I have is one where it almost feels like the voice of the guru is a universal voice. It's like all gurus speak with the same voice. And that may sound weird. And, even if, as I look at my own life and my own experiences and the various teachers that I've had, whether they were, teacher mentor types, people that I worked with either in music or in theater or in other creative fields. I've had a couple of physical discipline teachers who were like this, and qigong, even the martial arts, yoga, all the various things I've studied over the years. In my own life, all these different teachers have different personalities. They all have peculiarly unique features of who they are. But that's not what I hear when they speak, or at least that's not what I hear in the moments when they are playing the role of guru and transmitting. And it's actually something that's coming to me now is that I've actually had an interesting experience of being in the presence of a teacher, of certain teachers. Now, I haven't had this with all of them, but being in their presence in the kind of context where they're teaching and they're doing their thing, and then being in their presence in the context of more just them in their normal life, or just a more personal relationship. And that has at times almost been a weird experience for me, especially when I was younger, because the guru, it is really kind of like that moment in their teaching, in the moment of them embodying and transmitting what they are doing. It's like they are channeling something universal. And what I receive as the student is something so, it's almost like I don't receive it as coming from their personality. I receive it as coming from on high, And I think that's maybe also where we can get confused, and where the kind of like teacher, or the guru-student relationship can maybe get a little dicey, is when we associate that person of the teacher or the guru with the universal force that they are channeling and transmitting, because those two things are not the same thing. Their personality is not the same as that universal voice. And so, you get those two things mixed up, and all of a sudden you kind of have this worship thing happening that is really unhealthy and really kind of ultimately kind of makes the kind of teaching and the kind of transmission that needs to happen impossible. I've never really had that issue in my life too much. I've maybe here and there I've kind of overestimated a teacher or something, but by and large I feel like I've had relatively healthy relationships. But there's this important distinction, and this thing that's coming online even as I'm just talking about this now, where the guru is in the role in certain moments, in the moments of transmission. They're speaking with one voice. They all seem to be speaking from the same place, whether it's my Qigong teacher or my piano teacher or my theater teacher or a straight up spiritual teacher or a Sadguru whom I've never even really met. I've only watched his videos on my phone. There's this essence that they are coming from, and it was the impression that hit me was just no more and no less than they're all speaking with one voice. That's amazing. What an amazing thing. What an amazing thing to notice, that there is this universality to what's being transmitted in those moments. It's kind of mind-boggling to observe that what I'm receiving is not coming from the person. It's coming from a force beyond their personality. And, this is actually where we get into, I see a corollary, correlation between some of the learning that I did at theater school, physical theater school. There's a lot of emphasis placed on transparency. In other words, making ourself transparent, our body transparent, our creative impulses transparent. And by transparent, what we mean is an impulse can come in and be transmitted. It's like our body is a prism that refracts light or energy easily, as opposed to energy comes in and gets stuck and we don't transmit it. It can't get out. And that sort of having that vocabulary to talk about both receiving and transmitting energy or spiritual wisdom or creative wisdom or whatever gives me an avenue for understanding how it is that all these teachers seem to speak with one voice. If they're all equally transparent to that universal force. And then the interesting thing in my personal relationships has been they turn into people. They go from being these kind of like cosmic loci of wisdom and light to being people who like just need to go eat lunch or whatever. There's a kind of, that's been, again, I've had that experience many, many times now, and it's not a foreign one to me now, but I think when I was younger it was foreign. It was like, oh, because you really do kind of confuse the essence. You confuse what's being transmitted with the person you see transmitting it. And clearly that's not, that's kind of not helpful. That's kind of not healthy. But even now it's interesting to me. I had never quite, this is the thing that showed up for me that was kind of new. I've known this. I've had this feeling hundreds of times probably, where I'm like, oh, I recognize that voice, the voice of the guru. I recognize that voice. And I've even had associations between one teacher and the other teacher and another teacher, because I'm like, what I feel from them, the last time I remember receiving a transmission like this was from whatever other teacher, other big influence in my life, mentor, teacher. And sometimes these are even teachers I haven't had that deep of a relationship with, but I just see them and it's like, oh, they're speaking with that voice. They're transmitting that thing. And it just reminds me of the other associations I have, of the other teachers that I've had, or the other presences in my life that have been at that level of transmission. So I think I'm unpacking this mostly just because it really had an impact on me to phrase it that way. It had an impact on me to recognize, oh, it's the universal guru voice. There's something universal that comes through us. It comes through great teachers. And I think, to just kind of come full circle in my own reckoning with this, I in my own teaching, I'm very conscious of when I'm transmitting and when Robin's personality is thinking something through and saying something, when it's coming through me, and when it's coming kind of from me. Of course, it's never really coming from the personality. It's always energy being refracted through a personality. But when there's more of an emphasis, when my identity, when the locus of my identity is on me, Robin, here, what I think is me, doing what I think is my thing, and when the doors are just open and it's all I'm doing is refracting something that's coming through me. It's two obviously very different experiences, and I think, I guess I'm getting to a place in my own work where I'm just sensing and seeing the importance of that. I'm sensing and seeing the importance of that universal voice. It's like there's love in it. There's depth in it. There are healthy boundaries. In other words, there's both gentleness and discrimination. It's not judgment, but firm feedback. This way, not that way. The great teachers in my life have not been people who say, whatever works for you. No great theater teacher, no great pianist that I've ever worked with says whatever works for you. None of them have said that. They all know a path, and they're not saying their path is right for me, but they're saying there's a path here, and you can be on it and you can be off it, And I think I'm appreciating that. And just, in the teachers that I've started to meet in the last 6 months, I've come across Madeline. Well, I think Madeline's a little, maybe 9 months, but Madeline, Chogyam Trungpa, who was her teacher, who's of course passed away, but I have been reading his books and I feel like I'm absorbing him. And Sadhguru. They're the voices kind of blend together. Sorry, my alarm cut me off. There's this sense of that one voice calling to me again. And it's remarkable. It's remarkable to me. Because it's like I'm seeing I'm sensing the influence of that ever more deeply in my own life. There is that one voice. There is that place that all my teachers are tapping into. And we can hear that voice in our own head. We can hear that voice in our own voice. That voice will come through us if we want it to, and if we practice tuning into it. So I think that's what I'm appreciating, and that's why I'm kind of particularly fascinated by observing that phenomenon of all the teachers speaking with one voice. It also lets me know. It's something that I can very quickly, if I'm aware of that, I ought to be able to turn it around and go, well, what's speaking in me right now? I recognize. It's almost like I have had this happen. I've had the experience of speaking with my own voice and sensing that that's what's coming out, sensing that, oh, I'm not speaking right now. Something's speaking through me. And I think in this phase of my life, in this particular chapter of things, hearing that and letting that come through, it just feels particularly significant. It feels like an important time for me to be putting my focus there. So it's where I am today, people. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Love you. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.